Okay, in this video I want to show you how to use your plucking hand correctly. Um, and I'm going to show you how to use the two fingers, okay? There are other ways of playing with the plucking hand. Most other common way being using a pick or a plectrum. I'm going to focus on the fingers in this video, okay? Um, First of all, you want to get your posture correct, okay? And I talked about this in the previous video, so I'll put a link in the description um, to that video. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you check that out first because you want to be sat correctly and have your base positioned correctly before you start trying to play anything with this hand. Okay, so once you've got your posture sorted out, I ended the last video, the posture video, but with my arm here, my wrist over here, not too bent, but it's got a nice smooth curve in it. It's probably the best way to describe it. And a thumb, your thumb on the pickup. Okay. You might have different pickups, so somewhere central is a good idea. Although you could also play here if you wanted to. Let's focus on playing on this one, okay? Okay, and that sort of thing I just did then is what we're going to talk about. So you've got your thumb on the pickup. I said in the other video to not push too hard. If you push really hard, you might end up breaking the pickup, and you end up with a dent in your thumb and bruised thumb and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to do that. It wants to be anchored on there nice and gently, okay? So once the thumb is on there, let's take one of your fingers to begin with, okay? Now we're going to be using both of them, and that's very important, but let's start with just the one. Let's start with the first finger, okay? So your thumb on the pickup, and you want these two fingers, on this base at least, in somewhere in between the two. Okay? Okay, we're going to focus on this string here, your A string, okay? So it's not your lowest, it's your second lowest. Okay? And the reason for that is that I want to show you how to play what you'd call a rest stroke, okay? And that is very important in bass playing because it serves the purpose of muting any other strings that might be ringing whilst you're trying to play the string that you're on, okay? Because it's a bass guitar, most of the time you just want one string at a time. If you get two, it sounds a bit muddy, okay? And if it doesn't sound muddy, there'll be an annoying ringing sound in the background. And you'll be wondering what it is, and then you'll touch one of the strings to stop it, and you realise it was just the string vibrating. Okay, and you don't want that. Okay. So, as you could probably see then, a rest stroke, let's just do it with one finger at the moment, is when you want to pluck the string with this part of your finger, okay? So it's the end of your finger, it's not up here, it's right on the end. And you want to use this part of the knuckle, okay, this knuckle here, this part of the finger, that sort of motion, so it's not that, okay, you're not bending the middle knuckle, you're bending that top biggest one, okay, that's where the movement is, yeah, it's called walking fingers, yeah. Okay, and what you're going to do is place the part of the finger that I just said on the string, okay, there it is, and using that knuckle that I mentioned, just pull it in and towards yourself and slightly upwards as well. Now in doing that you get a nice firm pluck on the string, which is what you want, you get a nice full sound. Okay, if you do it any other way, it's not quite as full sounding, okay, not quite as powerful. There are people who do play in different ways, and that's absolutely fine. But for now, you want to do it like that, okay? So you're pulling in and towards yourself and up a little bit as well. So that sort of angle, yeah? And in doing that, the reason I've done it on this string and not this string is that you can see the rest stroke. So in doing that, the finger ends up resting on the string below. Okay? important to note that in saying below in relation to this instrument is not that way, but that way. Okay, it's physically above, it's musically below. It's getting lower, yeah. The strings here are lower than the strings there. Okay, so you've plucked the string, like I said, and you've ended up on the string below, resting on the string below. Not to pluck it, not yet at least. But if you happen to be plucking it beforehand, you've now stopped it simultaneously with the pluck of the next one. Okay. Yeah, so that's the E string being played, and then the A string being played, and they're both nice and clear, and neither of them are playing at the same time, else it would sound like this. Okay, not the nicest sound. Okay, and that's the basic idea. You want to do that on all strings. You don't have a string below your E string, but it's the same movement. Okay, and your finger might end up resting on your thumb, say, which is on the pickup. Okay, now you want to do the same with the other finger, and you want to switch between the two. Okay. Okay, so you're alternating those fingers. They're always alternating. That's very important. Don't want any of that. At speeds like this, it works fine, but if you're going really fast, it's harder to do, and you'll wear yourself out, and it won't sound as good. It won't be as even. That's the way you want to do it. Okay, and you don't want to go straight in fast like I just did then, but nice and slowly, making sure you're alternating those fingers. Make sure the movement is in the right place in those bigger knuckles, and in and toward yourself and slightly up to end up resting on the string below. Same with the E string, okay? Now you do that all the way up to the higher strings, okay? So your D and your G. Now something you may have noticed then is as I got higher, my thumb moved place. It came off of that pickup. Okay, now the reason for that is once you get to there, your rest stroke is falling on the A string. So when you're playing the D string, you should be rest stroking and landing on the A string, okay? That leaves this one open to start vibrating, okay? So you want a way of stopping that, and the way to do that is to drop your thumb onto it, and that will stop it making a noise, okay? So you've anchored your thumb on the string rather than the pickup, which is fine. As long as you're not playing that string, you're free to put it on there, yeah? It also gives you the advantage of not having to reach as far, okay? That's a relatively large gap to get across. That isn't quite as much. Even less so would be to rest it here, which you could do. Yeah, because when you're on that high string on that G, yeah, you're rest stroking onto the D. That leaves that one open. So you resting your thumb on that A string to stop that one ringing out. It will also stop that E string because as you're resting there, that part of your thumb is touching that E string and stopping it, okay? Yeah, so a good way to practice, start with the thumb on the pickup, alternate your fingers, these knuckles here, not like that, just those two fingers. Take it nice and slowly. And you get a nice rounded even sound, okay? One other important thing to note when you're practicing this. Okay, so our fretting hand hasn't had much use yet. We haven't been fretting any notes. We've just been working on those what you'd call open strings with this hand. One thing I haven't said yet is that this hand, it did actually play a little part in what I just played, and it was important in coming back down those strings. So going up, all the necessary muting going on with the strings that you're no longer on is happening with the rest strokes and the thumb changing its anchor spot. Yeah. On the way back down though, if I were to keep this hand out of the way, sounding a bit muddy, those strings aren't getting muted at all. So eventually you end up with them all ringing out, and you end up with that horrible sound. So the way to mute those strings on the way back down is to use this hand, okay? So if I just change position slightly, as I'm coming down, so I'll change this position slightly as well so you can see both hands. Okay, that hand has rested onto the string to mute it. Okay, and that's doing the muting as this hand is descending. Yeah, you see that? Stops the string ringing out. Okay, you want to experiment with where you do this if you're playing a lot of open strings. With some places you might end up catching some natural harmonics, which can sound nice, but if you're going for silence, that isn't silence. That's not what you want. So you're in danger of doing that. So if you hear that, just change slightly. Somewhere within the first 4 frets of the bass is usually quite a good place to mute it. Those natural harmonics, there are some up there, but they're harder to get. So that's a good place to do that. Okay. So just to summarise, thumb on the pickup, bigger knuckles, alternating fingers, one string at a time, nice and slow. As you move, you want to be rest stroking, so your fingers are plucking the string and then resting, you fall onto the string below to mute it. You can do that all the way up with your thumb following as necessary to mute some of the strings when the rest strokes aren't doing it. And then on the way back down, same thing, you're still doing the rest stroking with your right hand, your plucking hand, and your thumb is still resting on the strings and then the pickup. But this hand is doing the muting when you've moved off of a string. So I'm going now, I'm on the A, I'm about to go down to the E again. There you go, I've stopped it. Down here at the lower end is a good place to do it. Okay, so that's your basic plucking hand technique using fingers, okay? Like I said, you can use a pick as well, which would involve some different techniques for muting and stuff like that. And there are also some more advanced techniques as well, such as slap bass. Got your 2-hand tapping as well, more for solo stuff, and there's also double thumbing. But for now, have a practice of using those fingers. Make sure you check out the posture video if you haven't already. You should watch that one before you've watched this. If you happen to watch all of this without watching that one, then go back and watch it to make sure you're sat correctly. Okay, thanks a lot.